This is the Relevant Podcast.
It's Tuesday, December 28th, 2021, and it's the Relevant Podcast. Here in Orlando, I'm your host, Cameron Strang, and this is a special episode because it is our end of the year look back at the biggest moments of 2021. It's been a crazy year in a lot of ways, and a lot of memories were made here on this show. We're going to focus this episode on some of the best conversations and guests that joined us. We actually had the ambitions to try to do a best of the year cast moments episode. Impossible. There's just too much content to go through, and sorry about that. But there's a lot of funny moments that happened this year at the cast. Why don't you just go back and listen to our archives yourself? But it's a lot easier to excerpt conversations, and what we did was rounded up some of our favorites throughout the year. This is by no means an exhaustive list. This is just some highlights. Also, it's just going to be some short clips. It's going to have a lot of variety. It's going to keep moving, and we hope you enjoy this little walk down memory lane. 2021, man, we had some of the most, influential, interesting, creative, impactful guests that we've ever had in the 16 years that we've been doing this show. In fact, kicking things off early in the year, back in January on the 29th, we talked to one of our favorite groups, Johnny Swim. The husband and wife duo joined us to discuss their creative endeavors during the pandemic and how they stayed healthy and happy in the middle of a very difficult creative season. Here's a little bit of our conversation with Amanda and Abner, Johnny Swim.
So let's burn the bridges down. Let's burn the bridges down. Light them up, no turning around. No escape through the ashes now.
Is shooting stuff around the house, having cameras up, does it feel like you're on stage the entire time at all? Is that is it anxiety inducing?
Not for me.
It does for me.
It does not feel, it does, there's a pressure of being on, so I feel that. But it's more like being in a day-long interview than it is being on stage.
It's not really like, it's not the same as being on stage, because on stage there's interaction, there's like a joint excitement for everybody to be there, and there's community happening on stage, and this is just kind of eyeballs. This just feels like eyeballs are on you, and you have to pee, and you're always thinking about your microphone. If you say something about somebody, you're like, oh, that guy's so weird, I don't know why he's here, and you're like, crap, my microphone's on.
It's not always 100% smooth at Casa de Ramirez. Maybe somebody's bugging you, and I gotta tell my wife somebody's bugging me. Maybe I forgot I had my mic on. Dang it. Okay, well, now everybody knows.
You both are used to working at home. This is something that you have been doing since long before all of this. A lot of people are struggling with this right now. They're losing all sense of a balance between their jobs and their lives and what they want to do for fun and what they have to do to make money. Any advice for those of us who are not as experienced as you are in how to maintain a good, healthy work-life balance from home?
I think having traditions during the week. So like we'll have Taco Tuesday, if we order in or whatever, that kind of changes. But, we just have these things that I think as a family, at least, it kind of helps us remember what day of the week it is. Because I think it's a hard part of being home. It just feels like a never ending. It keeps us knowing that we're in time and space, and we haven't just been hurled out into eternity and where every day is the same.
I feel like the COVID blues really kick in when you start losing your sense of motion. For us, that's really easy to lose because our motion is very literal. We need to edit the book, we need to film, whatever it is. All those kind of become easier to do and to accomplish because we know here at home we got motion, we're moving.
Let's burn the bridges down. Light them up, no turning around. No escape through the ashes now. Let's burn the bridges down.
Well, in June, one of our favorite leaders and speakers, Caine, joined us. She's an author and an activist. She heads up the A21 campaign with her husband. She joined us in June to discuss spiritual burnout, how we can easily fall into it, and how we can help prevent it. It was a very helpful conversation for a lot of us. Here's part of our conversation with Caine.
If you could go back and sort of prep Chris in 2015 for what was coming, what would you tell her that could maybe have kept you anchored instead of, that could have kept you and prepared you at a spiritual level for the storms that you were about to go through, as we all go through storms eventually?
Well, Taylor, I would kind of flip that a bit, because I think the reason I didn't drift out to sea is because of the practices I had developed. A lot of other things that I had hoped would keep me, whether it was relationships, systems, structures, no, they didn't. Like if that was, if my trust was there, I'd be out to sea with everybody else. But as I go through and talk about the value of, the word and prayer and church and healing and trusting God. I mean, we're talking basic biblical truths, and I keep saying it, you'll hear me say it 100 times. All you have to do to drift is nothing. Like in this period, if we all just are not proactively going, I better check my anchor, check the links in my chain and go, you know what? Am I really rooted and grounded in Christ? And some of these things that I think are negotiable. Does church really matter? Does reading the Bible really matter? Does praying really matter? Does community really matter? Does gossip really matter? Does slander really matter? Does sleeping around really matter? Does this, all the stuff that we think does it? I'm like, y'all need to check the links in your chain, because some of the stuff that we are flippant with, when a Category 5 hurricane comes, and it will come for all of us, I think being part of a life-giving community is very, very important, because I wouldn't have made it alone. I mean, you think, wow, I've been doing this for a lot of decades. I'm on the front lines doing this, but the practice of gathering, I think is so important. It's not just a token thing. In that season, Tyler, to be honest, there were times I couldn't take myself to Jesus. I needed someone to carry me.
In February, we talked to award-winning actor Daniel Kaluuya. His new movie at the time, Judas and the Black Messiah, had just come out. And we talked to him about how he prepared for that role, which was depicting one of the most influential yet unknown civil rights activists. Here's part of our conversation with Daniel Kaluuya.
America's on fire right now. Imagine what we could accomplish together. We can heal this whole city.
You ain't tell me it was gonna be like this. These ain't no terrorists.
We got a rat, man.
Does anybody else know about me?
No one knows your identity.
When I really took in the scope of his ideas, his concepts, his beliefs, his love for the people, I felt just honored to kind of spiritually step into this position, for this narrative, and to be a part of continuing the legacy. You know what I'm saying? In my medium, we have Chairman Fred Jr. doing it in the real world as well. You know what I'm saying? So it felt like an honor, and I just wanted to honor that. I'd seen that the memorial site of the shootings had been destroyed. I remember that. I remember they had been destroyed, and Chairman Fred Jr. was explaining to me about how the police come and kind of wreck those kind of places, so that it was, for me, it was a microcosm of what's been done for centuries. It's the disruption of necessary healing that from the powers that be, and I saw that there. And I just felt like, I didn't feel like I had anything to prove. I just was like, I'm here to connect on a real level. I'm trying to understand your point of view, how you guys see the world. You know what I'm saying? I want to look through your eyes. I don't want to look at you. I want to look with you. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of I felt. I just remember those kind of things, and I remember the energy we were just talking. We were just chatting there. I didn't feel fear, if I'm being brutally honest.
Yes.
I just understood that there's a bounce.
Yes.
There's a bounce because it's beyond bouncy ground. You understand what I'm saying? That's life.
In early December, we spoke with former Bachelor contestant Madison Pruitt. Her new book, Made for This Moment, had just come out, and we talked about why God has a plan and purpose for everyone. Here's part of our conversation with Maddie Pruitt.
You know, I think this message is so important, but sometimes there are people that still just don't think that they even have any sort of plan. Like all of this is just so hard for them to believe. So what would you say to someone who just really doubts that God has any sort of plan for their life?
I love that. So I preach the message, yes, you were made for this moment, but really it goes back to, again, the message of it's so much bigger than you, and you being made for this moment is actually to make a difference for other people. And it's actually to add value to the world around you. And it's crazy. I just know this, like, from my personal experience, but it's crazy when you start adding value to other people and making a difference to other people, the confidence and purpose that brings you. And I know for me, you know, mission trips I've taken, moments where I've spoken messages or written or posted something or whatever it was, you know, where I didn't feel confident. I didn't feel like, okay, why am I even up here speaking? There's so many other people that could be up here speaking that are so much more qualified, who have all the things, who are older and wiser and all the things. But I was like, you know what, but I'm going to do this because this is what God has called me to do, and I'm going to do it faithfully. And as soon as I would get done speaking, or as soon as I would walk away from a conversation or walk away from writing or posting something, you know, I'd have so many people run up to me and be like, you have no idea how much I needed to hear that. Like, that literally just changed everything for me. And I always like to tell people, you know, it's crazy how one act of courage and how one step of obedience and how just saying yes to what God has for you can lead to other people's freedom, can lead to other people's confidence, can lead to other people's act of courage, and ultimately to their revelation of who God is. And so therefore, there is a heavy, you know, not heavy, but there's a weight on our lives and a responsibility at hand that we have to really step into the fullness of what God has for us. But the beauty of it is that, you know, it's so much bigger than us, and that it's God who gives us that confidence, that strength, grace, and courage that we need to walk that out.
I know a bunch of you probably are heading to Atlanta in the next week or so for the Passion Conference, January 2nd and 3rd. That's a free plug. Well, in May, Pastor Louis Giglio joined us to talk about his new book, Don't Give the Enemy a Seat at Your Table. It had just come out, so we talked about fighting and winning battles physically, mentally, and spiritually. Here's part of our conversation with Passion Pastor Louis Giglio.
I was surprised. It made sense after I thought about it for a second that Psalm 23 is such a big part of the book, because I know the table, setting a presence for myself at the table of my enemies thing is part of that psalm, but I hadn't really made that connection until you put it the way that you did there. So how did Psalm 23 become central to the book as you started writing it?
Well, I think because it's an even though I will psalm, and that's a big part of this book, that life gives us what it gives us, but the overwhelming hope that we have is that we can resolve to think positive thoughts and to think truth and to live on truth and to act on truth no matter what's happening in our world. And even a phrase like, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and then here comes the flip, I will fear no evil. And there are many, many huge places in Scripture where that even though I will narrative happens. But I think for me, it was the revelation for the first time when I realized where I was and how I felt surrounded and how paranoia had sort of taken control of the story. Like, everybody's against me. Everybody's out to get me. I got to watch my back, and I got to lay awake at night. And I just hadn't really seen it before, that God wanted to put the table in the middle of the conflict. And if I had written that psalm, I would have written, you prepare a table for me in your presence. let's get rid of the enemies. It's just me and your presence. And he says, no, I'm going to put it here. And it's the same as what he did with Elisha. You know, Elisha's servant said, hey, bad news this morning. We're surrounded. The army came in the night and they've got the whole town surrounded. And Elisha just said, Lord, help my servant see. And when he did, he realized that God had surrounded all of the armies that had surrounded them. And God puts the table in the middle of the enemies so that they can see that he is sufficient for us. It's all ultimately about him getting glory.
If you're anything like me, you're a fan of this guy's work. In November, we were joined by comedic actor Tony Hale. His new movie, Clifford the Big Red Dog, had just come out. We talked about the new creative endeavors he's pursuing. And, you know, I mean, Veep, Arrested Development, all-time actor here. Here's part of our conversation with Tony Hale.
Uncle Casey, can't we just stay for one night?
One night.
Really? How big is he gonna get?
That depends on how much you love him.
It kind of seems like a lot of people look at movies as in there's the family-friendly movies that are for everybody and kids can go see them, but they're not really serious movies. And then there's the grown-up movies that are taken a little more seriously, but kids can't go see those. And I'm wondering if this project bridges that divide in any interesting ways.
I will say, my daughter's 15 now, but when she was younger, we were just hungry for like something for the whole family to watch and have a good experience with it that I wouldn't just want to like, you know, bash my head against the wall. You know, so it's like, and also when Walt Becker, the director, is smart because he brings people together like John Cleese, you know, and David Alan Grier, and Kenan Thompson. And I mean, I grew up on John Cleese. Monty Python was like the thing to watch. And
oh, wow.
And so it kind of brings that adult sense of comedy in. So I appreciate that. In addition to being eye candy, I mean, watching these special effects come to life with a large red dog walking through the city of New York, it's just kind of an awesome spectacle. So I think this is the marriage of those two things where the family can go watch and everybody can have a good time.
You mentioned this very divisive season that we're in, which is obviously very hard to live through and I think is wearing on us all in a lot of ways. And I'm curious if you could sort of give a message to everybody who goes to see this movie or give them an idea to hold on to, what would it be?
Yeah, there's a scene which is a heartbreaking scene where Clifford wants to make himself small in order to make things better. And I just think like, just this, and not to say it again, but really that celebration of the differences and the uniqueness and really trying to build those bridges where if you take a step and rather than criticize, rather than judge, rather than put someone in a box or label them, but really listen and try to have empathy and try to support, that is genuinely where growth, that equation is where growth happens.
Everything that I do
Over the summer, specifically the August 13 episode, we talked to author and speaker Jackie Hill Perry. She had a new book called Holier Than Thou. And we talked about walking through life, focusing on God's holiness. Powerful conversation. Here's part of it with Jackie Hill Perry.
I feel like holiness it's one of those big words that we use, but we don't always think about what it means. So how would you, in your own words, how do you describe holiness?
Yeah, well, it really just means separate, set apart. And God as holy means he is separated from us in the sense that he is different and unique because he exists differently from us. Like, for example, everybody that exists was created. God wasn't, so automatically he's just completely different. All of us are dependent. God isn't. He doesn't need anyone but himself to be himself. And so that's what sets him apart. But what also sets him apart is his moral righteousness, his moral purity. It's that he cannot sin, will not sin, cannot look upon evil. Of Jesus, it was said that there was no sin found in him, no deceit in his mouth. And so holiness is just being separated from all that is common. we become holy insofar as we become like God. Because there are two extremes. There's the extreme where God is so transcendent that there is no nearness or intimacy. And I think you can see that in some fundamentalists' relationships with God, where they know all the things, but their faith seems dead. You know, there's no zeal, there's no joy, there's no power in the way they live out their Christian faith, in the way they talk about their relationship with God. But then there are those who become so familiar, he is so close and so near, that they begin to treat him like commonplace, where there's a lack of reverence, right? And so I think to hold the tension is faith. It's to say that, man, God is high and lifted up, but he has also came near to me through Jesus Christ.
I told you we had some hits this year. You know? I mean, this lineup, come on. What podcast, folks? What podcast? All right. Well, in April, we talked to world-changing church planner, author, thinker, pastor Francis Chan. We talked about the importance of unity within the church body, which is something we definitely should strive to obtain and move in the future. Here's part of our conversation with Francis Chan.
What would you say to people, and there's so many of them, we've heard from so many of them, Irrelevant, I'm sure you've heard from these people as well, who want unity with people in their church, with maybe friends, family members who are also in the church, but they feel like there's an alienation there, maybe owing to the political situation, possibly to religious division. They are trying to figure out how to bridge that gap, but it just seems insurmountable. What do we do?
I think about Exodus 14 when Moses is leading the people out of Egypt and they're backed up against the Red Sea and it's impossible. It's just impossible. An army's coming. You've got a couple rocks and a bunch of, and this giant army is coming. There's no way out. And Moses said, the Lord will fight for you. You only need to be quiet. And then this miracle happens. That's what I'm believing for. Mm-hmm. I really believe that if we can just shut up, okay, not even come up with all of our plans and strategies. Here's how we're going to do it. Mm-hmm. No, just can we learn to be quiet in the sacred presence of God again? Because if we could, like Ecclesiastes 5, just guard our steps when we go to the house of God, not to say anything, but just to stand in awe of God. It's like Bonhoeffer said in Life Together, like if you don't have that time with the Lord, then whenever you do go to the church and open your mouth, it's actually going to ruin the church. You're actually going to hurt it by sharing your thoughts and opinions that come from a place that isn't deep in the heart of God.
It's a big year for our next guest, rapper Andy Mineo. He joined us in October, specifically the October 8th episode. Talk about his brand new album, Neverland 2, which is awesome. We talked to him right after it dropped. We spoke about what influenced the music and how he's grown as an artist over the years. Here's part of our conversation with none other than Andy Mineo.
It could be worse. Life is hard, I thank God. It could be worse. Life is hard, I thank God. It could be worse.
I'm curious about how much you feel a pressure, like the tension between, on the one hand, I know what people who are listening to me like. I know how to deliver another coming in hot, but I also want to push myself as an artist. I also want to continue to grow and expand my palette. Do you feel that? Is that a wrestling match you struggle with when you're creating?
Constantly. For example, like when I made the Arrow, like all I was working on was just like expressing just art. You know what I'm saying? And that has been the most deeply impactful album for people from me. Like there's more tattoos of the Arrow on people than anything else. but it's also one of my lowest selling albums. So
That's
it
tough.
has this. It's weird because, you know, the hits are what get people's attention and make them interested in hearing your stuff. But then the true and honest and vulnerable stuff is what connects with people the most. So, like, no one's coming up to me going like, "Coming in Hot changed my life." You know, people are like, "That's a jam.
Like, it's a banger." Yeah.
Right. And then, but people always come up to me and be like, "Clarity changed my life," or whatever record, honest to God. So for me, it's just about trying to find a balance of those things because I'm an artist for a living. So there's this weird dependency on people liking my stuff, sharing it, being exposed to it. And so it's a bit of a game. And I think I always feel in tension for that, to provide music that can be have mass appeal, but then also still be able to speak to people's hearts. Want to touch the hearts and touch the charts.
At least you know I'm always inconsistent. You say that my phone just like my mistress.
When the crisis in Afghanistan escalated this year in September, we spoke with World Relief's Jenny Yang to better understand what was going on and what Christians can do to help. Here's part of a very important conversation we had with Jenny Yang.
I'm wondering if this is something that I feel like I've seen this, and I'm wondering if this has been your perception as well, that over the last maybe 5, maybe longer than that, maybe 10 years, the sort of work that you all do at World Relief has become a little bit politicized and maybe more controversial than it was when I was younger. And I'm wondering if that's something that you've experienced or perceived, and if you have any thoughts about why that might be.
Well, I think whenever you're talking about humanitarian protection and humanitarian assistance, you have to look at the broader picture, and you really are trying to address root causes of what causes poverty, what causes injustice. And oftentimes when you look at the root causes, it's systemic in nature. And so, yes, I think we as followers of Jesus do have a responsibility to be political. And by political, I don't mean to be partisan, which is blind allegiance to one political party, believing they have all the answers. But political means basically engaging in the polis, or the common community in which we all live in, to basically use our voice and our influence to speak up to those in positions of power to make a difference. So yes, if people say that, you know, the issue of refugees and migration is politicized, I would say that I think, yes, we have to engage in political conversations for us to be able to best serve the people that we care about. And so when the president is making policies or having positions or using a certain narrative that we believe is harmful to the image of God, of people who are particularly vulnerable, we will call him out on that or call her out on that. And so I think for us to be political is really to be engaged in broader conversations around the common good. And we, again, have an opportunity and a responsibility to ensure that our values are reflected in public policy considerations. And when we don't speak up, it creates a vacuum in which people who don't adhere to our values are shaping decisions that impact all of us. And so we have a place in the public square. We have a responsibility in the public square. And I think especially when policies impact those whom we're called to serve, we have a responsibility to be political.
If you've been following Relevant at all for the last 2 years, and if you're listening to this episode, I would like to think that you have, you know how much we love Maverick City music. Back in May, we caught up with Chandler Moore. Listen, no worship group had a busier year than Mav City, so we discussed the group's live collaboration album with Elevation Worship that had just come out, and a lot more. Here's part of our conversation with Maverick City Music's Chandler Moore.
Is it ever an audience thing? Because like some people are writing for, you know, Becky in Des Moines, Iowa, and then some people are writing for Atlanta or for Brooklyn or Los Angeles. I feel like that could be kind of an interesting thing too, because some people are like, well, at my church, they would never say something like that. You know, we just don't do that. And I think that would be kind of tough to work with.
Exactly. It's very, very, even with Jireh, like Jireh, I mean, you've never heard, you know, and Pastor Freddie was like, He's like, wait, did you just sing Gyra? Like, is that what you just said? He's like, have you ever sang that? I was like, no. And he's like, let's put it in the song. And it was his appreciation of how different it was and how it has not been incorporated in space. So I feel like the way we do stuff, the way we write, wouldn't work for people who are trying to protect their world, who are trying to protect their sphere, who are trying to protect their their tradition, what they have always experienced. But I think it works for people who are open and ready to be like, yo, I know we do it like this, but we need something new. Let's tear down the walls. Let's break those rules and see what happens. You know, when we welcome another type or taste into this space. You know what I'm saying?
Well, earlier this year, there was some hard news in the church after apologist Ravi Zacharias died. News came out about a lot of not great stuff, and there was an investigation and all that. So following that, back in late February, the 23rd, we talked with activist Rachel Denhollander about what the Ravi Zacharias investigation means for the future of the church and why it's important to have these tough conversations. Here's part of our very important conversation with Rachel Denhollander.
The most important thing that we can do and that we need to examine is what we message, because victims are always watching. Victims and perpetrators are both always watching. Perpetrators are highly, highly skilled predators. They look for dynamics that are going to ensure that if anybody ever speaks up, they won't be believed. So they look for places that miswield, that wield improperly those concepts of authority, those concepts of justice and forgiveness. They look for places that don't understand trauma and abusive dynamics, that aren't going to bring in outside accountability and outside help. Perpetrators look for those dynamics. And victims also look for those dynamics. They watch how we talk about issues of abuse, and they know that's what they would think about me. If this leader is talking about, or not even bothering to talk about, the victims who have come forward this way, if they're not even bothering to push for or ask for accountability, if they don't see the need for independent counsel, that's what they would think about me. And one of the things that came out of the Miller and Martin report is that that's exactly what happened to so many of the women who are abused by Ravi. They watched what happened to Lorianne when she spoke up, and they said, nobody cares. Nobody even cares. And if they did that to her, that's what they're going to do to me. So how we talk about abuse and abusive dynamics, how it is preached on, how it is communicated on our social media platforms, the priority and emphasis we place upon it in our ministries, that really is the most critical dynamic. That's what signals to abusers, you're not going to be safe here. And if you abuse, we're going to defend the sheep. That's also what signals to victims, they actually understand and I'm safe to speak up. So what we communicate really is the most important thing that we can do. That, of course, requires knowledge. So again, it is absolutely critical that we start really grappling with the realities of abuse and abusive dynamics, with our theology of authority, our theology of forgiveness, and start delving into where we have gotten this so wrong.
Well, back in October, we talked to Pastor Derwin Gray about how we can utilize prayer to get our lives back on track, something we all need, especially as we're starting a new year. This was from the October 5th episode. Here's part of our conversation with Derwin Gray.
I think it's important for all of us to understand that we are a localized people. That's a word that philosophers or sociologists will use, that we are localized in a context. So as people in the West and even in various parts of Europe, they're listening as well, we are what's called children of the Enlightenment. Way long time ago, 1600s, 1700s, 1500s, the Enlightenment took place. What's the Enlightenment? René Descartes, a Christian philosopher, was combating atheism, and he came up with a philosophical thought that he thought would prevent atheism, but actually brought in a secular sacred divide. And what he said is, I think, therefore I am. Before Descartes launched that into to the world, it was because there is a God. And if you wasn't a Christian, there were other gods that defined who you were. You didn't define who you were, your higher being. And so as Christians, I am because of the great I am. He's the one that we live and move and have our being. So once the Enlightenment project began to sweep through Europe, sweep through America, it has made us hyper individualized. In other words, instead of when we read the Lord's Prayer, it says our Father, but the way we read it is my Father. Prayer does not change God's mind. Prayer changes us so that we can understand the mind of God. Philippians 2:5, we have the mind of Christ, and the mind of Christ is one of saying, not my will be done, but thy will be done.
In September, we talked to Pastor John Mark Comer. He had just released a new book called Live No Lies. It's a good goal. We spoke to him about how Christians can pursue truth in a world that's constantly spreading lies. This is from the September 21st episode. Here is John Mark Comer.
Sometimes the lies, they feel like there's an air of truth to them. Obviously, I know, money does not bring happiness. Money to an extent helps, but it does not bring pure happiness. So there's things like that. How do you identify a lie that there is some truth in it, but there's not full truth?
Yeah. It's hard in our dogmatic kind of polarized right versus left, us versus them kind of anti-reason cultural moment that we're in. But I think you're absolutely right. That is the challenge of our time. And most good lies are mostly true. And if you think about, a lot of cults that, came to prominence over the last century or so, they're basically 95% in agreement with Christian Orthodox doctrine. But the 5% where they're off is core. It's like the nature of who Jesus is, or the resurrection of the dead, or, the 5% where they're in error is like the linchpin, And this is the great danger of ideology. And there are ideologies on the left that I would be incredibly familiar with just by virtue of living in Portland. And then there are ideologies on the right that other people, depending on where you live or what your digital algorithm is, you'd be more familiar with. But ideology, the best definition I know of ideology is when you take a part of the truth and you make it the whole. And, communism would be a great example where you take something that's true, this idea of class struggle and oppressed and oppressor and kind of the struggle between the elites of society and, the proletariat. But that, if you just take that as the whole truth and then overlay that over an entire nation's history and reality, at that point, it's no longer true. It's because life is way more complex than that, and 1,000 times more complex than that. And so it's not that it's not true that, there are oppressed and oppressor and there's class struggle. It's that when you make that the whole truth, you now are into a lie. So all that to say, that's a great salient example at a meta level. But I think when we're in just interpersonal stuff or our own life, it's just always looking for that 5% that's off, or looking for the yeah, but, or the yeah, and, or where has this critique or this idea or this value become an ideology? It's become not part of the truth, but the whole truth. And as a result, become untrue.
We got your church leaders. And then we have your A-list celebrities. In September, we talked to none other than actress Jessica Chastain. She was the cover story of our fall digital issue of Relevant, and she joined us to discuss her new movie, The Eyes of Tammy Faye. Her performance was unbelievable. She shared with us her thoughts on the real Tammy Faye Baker and how she prepared for the role. Here's part of our conversation with Jessica Chastain.
There
something, and that's at the end of our film, and it's actually taken directly, these are her exact words from something that I had seen her do when she was preaching. And she said, she's talking about the grace of God. And she says, without that beautiful grace, I wouldn't be here today. And she said, that grace that reached down and said, Tammy Faye, I love you, and I love you just the way you are. God's grace is sufficient enough for you today too, and he loves you just the way you are. And that to me is everything about our movie is trying to say. That to me is, I could get emotional talking about this. Even if you feel unloved, even if you feel unworthy, even if you've made mistakes in your life, even if you feel like you've been thrown away by society or you've been judged upon, you are worthy of love. And Tammy strongly believed that. And I think that's why so many connected with her, because there was something in her that saw the grace in you. And it's a good reminder to have someone see that.
I won't go forward looking in the rearview mirror of my life. This is who I am.
Well, one of my best friends, Propaganda, joined us in June. He's a hip hop artist. He's a poet. He's an activist. His new book called Terraform had just come out. So we talked about how we can build a better world together. Here's our conversation, part of our conversation. Propaganda.
The truth is I am no different. We move as a unit. The whole planet's the movement. If y'all ain't here with us, then it ain't worth doing it. It's unison, Nubian, Sufian. I ain't choose sides, I won't disturb the groove.
For me, it's like I wanted to figure out a way to like make the whole thing, like you said, like let's carry this whole idea through, that it isn't like the book, all this is supporting the book, or all this is supporting the album, or the coffee is a supplement to this. Like, no, it's all one sort of planet that you're walking into. And I think too, a phrase my wife told me from one of the brilliant feminist philosophers she reads that could be anybody, but just smarter than all of us. But one thing she said was that the personal is political, you know what I'm saying? And that culture can only be as healed as we are. So when you think about that, like, if we're out here protesting, a lot of that has to do with what's going on inside of you. If you out here protesting from rage, oftentimes it's because you're not healed inside of you. You know what I'm saying? For a good, and it might be, you might have got it honestly, you know what I'm saying? But taking care of yourself and holistically, you know what I'm saying, is a part of us seeing systemic change. So, so that's why I was like, yo, this coffee, slowing down, enjoying like what's coming from the soil and taking care of yourself first, you know what I'm saying? In addition to how you see in the rest of the planet, like all of it, music, art, the podcasting, it's all one thing, and it's all helping us see the world better and making a better world. So yeah, it's like, it's supposed to be reflective of this whole universe and of what I would hope for all of us.
Yeah, feel like real life, a TikTok loop. Control CV, another Jillian Roof. Came to the table, willing and able, trying to keep the hood safe, family stable. Appeal to your better nature, look inside our faces. We are human, we got issues, trying to work on those, yes. But why I gotta tell you,
when we're doing a best of, there's a conundrum, because it's fun to remind y'all about the great conversations we had earlier in the year that you probably forgot about. It's fun unearthing those, reminding you. But what do you do when some of your best content, your most incredible interviews, your biggest guests appeared just in the last few weeks? That's a conundrum. So here you go. Just a couple weeks ago, actor Zachary Levi joined us. We talked about his new movie, American Underdog. We also talked about why it's important to have hope during this season. Here's part of our conversation with Zachary Levi.
All my life, I've defined myself through sports. I've always come up empty.
Coach, I can win for you. You need to start thinking about life after football, son.
We gave you that chance. We're letting you go.
What is something that you hope, when audiences see this, what do you hope that they walk away from this, like, taking from this movie?
Yeah, hope.
inspiration overall. However, look, I think movies always have an opportunity, whether they're real life Cinderella story biopics or complete fiction. They all have the opportunity to inspire, to generally inspire audience goers to do something, whether it means to inspire them to go create themselves, or inspire them to be a better person, or inspire them to have more faith, or inspire them to have deeper hope. Whatever that is, I want people to walk away with some manner of inspiration when they leave this film. But I do think a lot of that will come in the form of hope, of being able to recognize that as much as sometimes we would love to believe that we know and should be in control of the timing of our life, that's just not true. It's not. And it doesn't matter what faith you are, or if you are of no faith at all, that's true of everyone. Nobody gets to time this stuff out. But what is true is that a lot of that journey, like in toward the end of the film, when Dick Vermeil is talking to Kurt, and he's like, how long were you out there in the wilderness? And away from the game, like Kurt was, like he should have gone from college into the NFL, and that didn't happen. And so then it was in the wilderness. And what was he doing out there? Like, God, what am I doing out here? And God's just like, just trust me. Just keep on that path, because you're about to learn some stuff that you didn't know, and you weren't going to learn it anywhere else. And that's, I think, one of the biggest takeaways of this movie. It's like, yeah, duh. We all think, what is it? We make plans and God laughs. I mean, it's that simple. And because he had to go through some other trials and tribulations, it helped him become a better man and therefore a better quarterback.
Kurt Warner out of the Arena League. It's one of those stories that's too good for the movies. The perfect guy here. He was bagging groceries 5 years ago.
Go out there and you show the world what I've known all along.
In November, political wonk, commentator, expert, Kirsten Powers, TV personality. I mean, she's got a litany of bio adjectives I could use. In November, she joined us to talk about her new book, Saving Grace. We discussed how to have grace and compassion for someone you may not see eye to eye with. A very apropos, needed, helpful, constructive conversation, as many of us are navigating extended family that might have different worldviews than we do. So here's how to have compassion and grace for someone you don't see eye to eye with. Part of our conversation with Kirsten Powers.
I'm wondering if you've thought about what grace would mean, or what your book would bring to somebody who feels that sense of powerlessness about these sort of cultural, we'll call them like main bosses or supervillains that we've constructed, who end up being repositories for so much of that negative, decidedly pretty ungracious energy.
I guess I would want more information about this, because Jesus was praying for people who are murdering him, right? So I don't really see how I don't know how people really think that their situation is worse than that, right? It's like I will acknowledge that there's a lot of evil going on. There's no question about that. It's not more evil than what John Lewis and MLK and Ruby Sales were facing, right? So I think that that's kind of the point. Is it's actually, this is when it's for. Mm-hmm. It's not, you want extra credit for loving your dad, or your neighbor. You know what I'm saying? That's the whole point of grace. It's unearned. So it's exactly for when it's loving your enemies. Jesus doesn't say to love people that you like, because you already do, right? It's incredibly difficult. That's the point, because you're getting you're getting into a different realm of thinking when you go there. You're not thinking in just a purely materialistic way. You're thinking in a spiritual way. You're thinking in an eternal way, right? That you're seeing something that's greater than just what's happening here.
Well, back in July, we talked to Aiden King and Karina Savage from Hillsong's Young and Free. They had a brand new album called Out Here on a Friday, Where It Began, dropped this summer. So we spoke with them about how they keep their sound fresh. It really is amazing. They just keep plugging in new people, keep innovating, keep progressing. Here's our conversation with Hillsong Young and Free.
think the reason we're so excited is it really showcases new young people coming through in our youth ministry. And so I feel like every time it comes to any release for Young and Free, we always say like, oh, we're so excited, it's so different. And it seems like the cliche response when you put out a new thing. But this really does feel like a new thing because, the majority of the songs are led and sung by like voices that no one's heard before. And with that comes, a new sound, which is different and really exciting and in some ways scary, but it feels like the best thing ever for us.
We go to the house of the Lord. We go to the house of the Lord. I'm gonna run to the sanctuary. I'm gonna go and set me free. Once I was blind.
We got thrown in the deep end. We were all unruly young people. We didn't know what we were doing. There was no rule book really. We could look at some of the, we'd look up at the United guys and, they were older than us and we watched what they did. But, we all had our own, way of expressing worship and praise to God. And I think one thing that was really cool about like our leadership at church, at Hillsong, is that they always really encouraged us to just do what we felt was right. And so, that's the same approach with these young guys. It's, I think it would be very easy to like just write everything, do everything for them and then let them sing. It's so much better when you take a risk and let them do what they think. And I think that's what helps change the sound and, brings a new voice, and, the Bible talks about singing a new song. And it's like, if, Karina and I just continue to write all the songs, and we put new voices on it, it's like, we're not really singing a new song. I think we need to open up the doors wider to let, new people through and let them bring what is unique to them. And I think that's how you get something really exciting and profound.
Let the rain fall down from heaven. Let it wash away the pain as we worship.
Well, in April, our next guest dropped a hot new album as well. John Eldridge. No, that's not true. He's an author. In April, we talked to author John Eldridge about taking care of our soul during the pandemic. And now that it's all coming back, this is a conversation we should definitely revisit. We just talk about what it looks like tangibly and why it's so vital. Here's part of our conversation with author John Eldridge.
Okay, so right now, our family, so I'm going to be super vulnerable, our family is divided on vaccines.
Okay.
And there are pro-vaccine and folks who say, I don't want to do that. That's my health choice, and I don't want to do that for health reasons, not for political reasons. And I can see it trying to divide our family. And I wanted to, so I want to fix it, right? So I wanted to send this group text, and Jesus caught me, and he said, "Don't send that. That's further fuel on the fire, pal. Like, drop all that stuff. It isn't about the vaccine. It's about love. It's about love. Bring this back around to how much you love these people and just drop it. Drop it." So I would say if there are things that got in to the relationship that help add to the isolation that was the politics of last fall or the politics of last week, or the news or the vaccines or whatever, the mask, like game, you know what? Drop it. Drop it. That stuff is actually really small potatoes. When you compare it to love, that love is the goal. Love is what we're after. Love is what heals relationships. And so I'd be honest, I'd name it. I'd name your thing and say, hey, can we just drop all that other stuff and just hang out together? Let's go do a road bike trip or something together. Drop the small stuff, gang, and drop the incendiary stuff. It's just super unhelpful. Let's come back to love. You love these people. You want relationship.
Back in May, on the 21st episode, we talked with author, activist, and hip-hop artist Sho Baraka. His new book, He Saw That It Was Good, had just dropped. So we discussed how creativity and the arts are essential in the fight for justice and equality. Here's part of our convo with Sho Baraka.
When I say persecution, we ain't talking about no violence, dude. What they really want to do is try to silence you. I believe the best of my values and ethics, but my cynicism tells me that your values are reckless. Information, I just need some information. I've been dying. Is it like
So for this particular audience that'll be reading this, listening to this podcast, reading us on Relevant, where do you see these communities going wrong and how they create and what you're talking about here? What are some of the frequent missteps that you've observed?
Yeah, in the book, I detail a few, like I said, like in story and the fight of the view of what justice is. I think the misstep is oftentimes is that when you control narratives, you often don't know how the stories you form affect and impact other people. And so what I challenge us to do is to consistently castigate our work. Paul talks about it in 2 Corinthians, I think, where he says to continue to evaluate yourself and your salvation to make sure, you're in right standing with the Lord. And I think there are often times, and I use this a quick example. They made me take most of it out the book, but you think about a pimp and a prostitute. Everybody, most Christians, better yet, will see that the work of a pimp is demoralizing and is degrading, not only to the prostitute, but to himself. And we see that as a vocation that is unhealthy. And most Christians would say you need to find different work. And we would ask that sister to stop selling her body and try to help liberate her, give her a better job, put her on a trajectory towards, as we would say, probably a more dignifying work. And I would say rightfully so. However, I also talk about in the book how somebody who does payday lending could walk into a church, and we wouldn't bat an eye on that. It may be legal in many states, but yet and still, it's clearly a means that creates poverty. It creates this cycle of poverty, and so that's a way of evaluating how you may think your work is good, but how you may be creating towards the detriment of the society.
Hello, love. Today the delegation votes. Today we must determine who is our future foe. I just left the meeting. I got permission to go, so I choose to use this time.
Well, in July, we talked to one of my favorite groups that dropped an album this year, Japanese Breakfast. Lead singer / she is Japanese Breakfast, Michelle Zahner, joined us to talk about her new album, Jubilee, which was a critical hit. She had a big year this year, releasing a bunch of stuff, actually, books, other things. We spoke about the new album and how she wrote it in the midst of a difficult circumstance. Here's part of our conversation with Japanese Breakfast.
I do want to ask a little bit about Jubilee. It's pretty different, and it feels like you're really exploring some emotions that I don't necessarily associate with Japanese Breakfast. Where did the sort of elation and hope come from that seem to me like they really permeate this album?
I think I just wanted to fling myself to the other side of the spectrum of human experience. I think that I had written 2 records largely about grief and loss, and then purged all of those, everything I needed to say about that experience in this book, that I was sort of able to literally close the book on that part of my life and start this sort of new chapter. And I thought that the most unexpected and exciting thing to write about would be something totally different, like joy. I do think I write sonically joyous music. I think even the songs that are about grief in some ways can be really uplifting sounding. I really enjoyed that juxtaposition. In retrospect, I felt like it was a really wonderful experience because I felt like I really knew what I was doing in this way that I didn't know with the book. And I was so frustrated with my own stupidity with the book that I felt like, okay, this is something I know how to do. I've made a number of records before. I can, feel comforted by doing this again.
Well, the last couple years have been incredibly important in how I think especially how Christians, how the church has changed its conversation around mental health. The stigma is waning. We can talk about it. People are embracing it. And especially after such a hard year that many of us have gone through, it's more important now than ever. Well, back in June on the 25th, mental health expert Dr. Caroline Leaf spoke with us about how taking care of our brains can keep us healthy. Interesting. Here's part of our conversation with Dr. Leaf.
Where do you see in your experience, in your research, where do we tend to go wrong when it comes to controlling our minds? And I felt this myself, you feel like you can't get your thoughts under control. Where do we tend to make the most common mistakes with that?
Well, just the statement that you made now is one of the most common things that people will say and will say to me is that how do you get your mind under control? How do you get your thoughts under control? Well, the answer is you can. And the answer is it's a skill that you develop. And the answer is you're going to have to make the effort to develop it and know what to do. But it's not something that's taught. We're taught how to eat properly. We're taught how to exercise. We all understand that you can't just become an athlete overnight, that you've got to go and train to become an athlete and you've got to go to school to become educated. That's all mind driven. All of those are mind driven. What we're not trained to do is to actually develop the mind to be able to do all of those things efficiently and to keep our emotions and the way we function healthy. Every experience is experienced through the mind. And I can't stress this enough because in order to manage it, you really have to realize when we talk about self-regulation, we are talking about examining the thoughts that are in our mind and fixing the thoughts that are affecting us and that we get stuck and ruminate and continue with toxic habits or where our relationships are affected because of some sort of traumatic abuse in the past or something like that. Self-regulation is that process. So you could do a simple thing like breathe in for three counts, breathe out for 7 counts. If you breathe out longer than you breathe in, you push blood flow to the front of your brain, and that increases your decision-making capability. So you're suddenly much better with decisions just by that breathing. It's also calmed down the neurochemical chaos. So you kind of, okay, I'm nervous, and I'm anxious, but I can do this versus, I can't do this, it's too much. So that's kind of the breathing. There's a lot of different exercises that I've given in the book, but this 10-second pause, 3 in, 7 out, is incredibly powerful.
Well, I mentioned the conundrum. The conundrum being that you want to see, here's the thing when you're making a podcast, you're making a magazine, you're doing anything in media, you want your next one to be your best one. Really. You never want to say, hey, we've arrived, phone it in, just keep doing the same old thing. You want to keep progressing. You want to keep getting better. And that's what happened this year on the podcast. I'm not saying we started at one place and ended up at another, but we kept striving. And lo and behold, our last guest of the year, maybe the biggest actor of the year, Andrew Garfield, joined us on literally last Friday's episode, Christmas Eve episode. We talked to Andrew Garfield. He is on the cover of the winter issue of Relevant. He was one of the stars of Tick, Tick, Boom. He was one of the stars of The Eyes of Tammy Faye. And he had a major role in another movie that I'm not going to name, but might be in theaters right now. I don't know. Anyway, we talked to Andrew Garfield about his wildly exciting year and a bunch of his projects. Here's part of our conversation with the one and only Andrew Garfield.
They're singing happy birthday, just wish you could run away. Who cares about a birthday but 3090? Hey, can you be optimistic? You're no longer the ingenue.
I say it this way, Lin-Manuel Miranda made a dream come true of mine that I didn't even know I had. I wasn't brave enough to think of ever doing a musical. I wasn't brave. I didn't have the courage to ever imagine I could be a part of something like this. And Lin saw me doing Angels in America on Broadway, or he saw me at the National Theatre in London, actually. And I think that gave him the confidence. I think he could feel that I was the right person for the character, but obviously the big question mark was the singing, because he didn't know if I had ever sung or if I could. But I think he saw that I had a vocal technique that enabled me to do an 8-hour show, 6 days a week at the time. And I think he just kind of said, well, I think if I give you the time and the resources to get your voice to that place, I believe you can get there. So I just borrowed his belief. I borrowed his confidence and his instincts. And it was very gratifying when, he snuck into a rehearsal I was doing one day where I was just practicing. And he threw his shoe at me and shouted at me across the room, "Andrew Garfield, you can sing and I don't have to recast you."
Johnny can't decide. Michael's gonna have it all. His luck will never end.
And rounding things up, this spring in May on the 14th, we spoke with singer-songwriter Natalie Bergman. Her album Mercy was one of our favorites. We spoke with her about finding peace through a difficult but necessary creative process. Here is part of the conversation with Natalie Bergman.
I really loved about this album just how you wrote about God, because I find it very difficult to write about God in ways that are not cliched and feel, because people have been writing about God for thousands of years now, and it's kind of hard to find new things to say. The way you found such, I'll say, powerful ways to talk about God was just through that level of honesty. You didn't try to dress it up or make it sound like anything that it wasn't. You were just singing about God, which sounds very simple and silly, but my God, it really worked.
Well, thank you. I think that some of the great songwriters, like Bob Dylan, he's mysterious. And one of the reasons why he's such a great songwriter is because there's the mystery in the song. He's such a great storyteller. He's one of the all-time storytellers, all-time greatest storytellers. And then you pair it with a little bit of mystery, and that's just a perfect combination. Now, on my album, I would say there's not a lot of mystery. It's very explicit. It's very literal. And going back to the idea of not being afraid or not being judgmental or overly critical of myself, I just was not afraid to say what I wanted to say on this album and speak from my heart and reference the Psalms, which are so poetic and beautiful. And the Bible is a masterful work of art. And borrowing from the writing, recycling it, making my own lyrics. I wasn't afraid to say what I wanted to say, and I wasn't afraid to sing about Jesus either.
Come on, shine your light on me, sweet Jesus, sweet Jesus.
Well, before we wrap it, listen, if you are a longtime listener, and again, we have been podcasting since 2005, folks. It's a lot of shows. And in fact, in 2022, we will be hitting our 1,000th episode. It'll be probably in September, I think we did the math. And when we do hit that milestone, we will celebrate, whether it's a tour or a live event or something. We will celebrate 1,000 episodes with you guys. It's crazy. Well, if you've been listening to the year-end episode over the years, you know that there's two things that almost always happen. One, we end it with all of those random Jesse outros from the entire year. Yes, that is coming up. Also, you know that the other thing that just started happening, and it's happened more years than not, is my kid would be on Christmas break while we were recording this. So he'd be at the office with us or whatever. And he'd usually pop in and say hi during the show. Well, we are working remotely and I'm in my home podcast studio right now. And guess who's on Christmas break? My kid. But before I introduce Cohen to you guys who have been listening over the years, in your head, you have sweet little Cohen. He likes to play games, video games. Yeah, that's who you have in your head. That is not who he is anymore. Cohen, say hi to the Relevant Podcast listeners.
Hi to the Relevant Podcast listeners.
I'm living with a full-grown adult who happens to be in 6th grade. He literally has, what size are your feet? 11 and a half now?
11 and a half.
Yeah, exactly. This is, folks, this is surreal. So anyway, Cohen, I have a couple questions for you. Whenever we have new people come on the show, I grab my stack of Table Topics cards and I grab a couple, and I have a couple for you. You ready for them?
Sure.
You willing? Okay, here we go. What do you say that sounds just like your mother or father? Anything come to mind?
No.
No, you just want you want to be nothing like me? Is that what you're trying to tell the public? You haven't adopted any of my wisdom and any of my insights into your life? All right, next question. What would you like to be doing in 10 years?
Not be dead.
That's a good life goal, to exist. I agree with that. I affirm your goals, buddy. All right, last question. What 5 foods do you wish were banished from Earth? 5 foods you wish were banished from Earth.
1, pecans.
Why?
They're pecans.
That's a good point. You make a good point.
Fruitcake.
Okay. Have you ever had fruitcake?
Yes.
Okay, I haven't. So I know that the reputation is that it's gross. What does it taste like? Does it taste like fruit or does it taste like something else?
Tastes like something else. It's just gross.
Okay, gotcha. So no pecans, no fruitcake, which is a holiday tradition. You got 3 more.
Gingerbread.
You've been eating our gingerbread house. What are you talking about? You ate the chimney.
Okay.
You literally ruined our gingerbread house because you keep eating the gingerbread. What are you talking about?
Gingerbread by itself. Gingerbread
you like the frosting and stuff.
With anything else is fine, just not plain gingerbread.
You know what? We were watching that Baking It show that Chris on Peacock, which is fantastic. And they were making gingerbread houses. Remember that one time?
Yeah.
And the bakers were talking about how little they like gingerbread. So I think you're not alone on that. Okay, that's 3. You got 2 more. Banished forever from the face of the earth.
Grapefruit.
Interesting. Another fruit. You're having issues with fruits. Yeah, fruitcake.
And
lastly, banished from the face of the earth.
Cabbage.
Cabbage? Do you like coleslaw?
No.
Oh, interesting. Well, there you go. Well, Cohen, thank you for joining us. The listeners really do, like the longtime listeners really do, like tweet us and stuff and ask like, oh, is Cohen going to be on the final episode each year? Yes, there you are. You have anything you want to say to the public? There's like, there's like 100,000 people listening right now. Like,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Folks, 2022 is going to be a good year because Cohen has wished you happiness.
You're welcome.
And joy.
You're welcome.
We could all use that right now. Thank you, Cohen.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us. All right. Well, hey, everybody, thanks for listening this year. It's been so fun kind of like looking back at some of the guests and stuff. Obviously, some of the cast conversations have been the most memorable moments as well. Who will forget the game? What was it? The who would win in a sack, a 3-legged race sack contest or whatever? And Jesse said The Sopranos. I don't know. I lost it. And the games, the cast has been so much fun. Last year, it feels like we trudged through a lot of heavy topics together. We made it. This year, I feel like we had a lot of fun together. Not that we shied away from heavy stuff, but I feel like this year was a lot more fun. Many thanks to Jamie Ivey. It is such an honor that you sacrifice time each week to join us. We love you. Love the work you're doing. Derek Miner has become one of my favorite people in the world. We've traveled together and I know his family. This guy is the real deal. He sticks his neck out for the right things. He ticks off the people that should be ticked off. And Derek, I'll always have your back, man. And Jesse, holy cow, dude. My partner in crime since almost day 1 on this show. This show literally would not be the same without you. I have come and gone. I have missed weeks. I've missed months. You have been the constant. This show is you, buddy. And thank you so much for being such a pivotal part of it. And to all of you listening, to all of you who followed along this year, it's been a big year of change at Relevant, a big couple years of change in media, really, but especially with us because we're such a small crew. But, we've made it through. And we are very excited about the stuff that's launching and the stuff that's in the pipeline. This is kind of where I get to like tease ahead a little bit. As you know, we're publishing 4 quarterly issues now. Instead of doing the print magazine throughout the year, we're doing digital issues. We transitioned over to that. The content gets to be spread more widely. It gives us a lot more flexibility, and hey, lower print bills, no print bills, which is nice. And we're culminating it each year into our big annual print edition, made for coffee tables, big, thick, all of our long form content, the best content from throughout the year. It's been on pre-order for about a month now, and in the next couple of weeks, it will be printed and it will be shipping at some point in January to everybody who's pre-ordered. If you haven't pre-ordered yet, we will leave it open for another week or so, and you can save 20% off the cover price by ordering it in pre-order and being an early adopter. And we're so grateful for everybody who has already done that. Also, coming up in January, we will finally, we've been working on it for like the entire year, we will finally be rolling out Relevant Plus, our new digital subscription program. We have a lot of new things in the works for Relevant Plus members, including a new podcast and other exclusive content. I'm excited to tell you more about that in the coming weeks in the new year. And we have some new partners coming up down the road, some exciting stuff. Want to thank our 2 big partners from 2021, Lumo, the Lumo Project. If you haven't checked out their visual Bible series, it's amazing. They sponsor our Deeper Walk daily devotionals. And again, if you haven't checked those out, you need to. It's a great way to start your day. But we worked with them to develop small group studies and a bunch of other stuff. We love what they're doing. And they have a big year coming up because they're releasing some more films this year. You'll hear more about that soon. But if you haven't checked out lumoproject.com, please do. It's really awesome what they're doing. Also, our other big partner this year, UHSM. Health sharing. If you haven't been to uhsm.org to find out what they're doing, it is awesome. It is like as easy as it could be. And it is a Christian-based organization that is helping people navigate alternatives to traditional insurance. Go check it out at uhsm.org. Thanking them as well. They've sponsored their Quarter Life series. We have some big stuff coming up in 2022 with them. They've presented several of our digital issues this year, ad-free. Just grateful for their partnership. Lumo, UHSM, please go support both of them. It really makes a difference and supports this show. And to all of our other advertisers and partners, we can't do it without you. And all of you who are listening and have shared the content and engage us online and tell us snarky replies on Facebook and Instagram comments. We appreciate you too. We love the feedback. Hey, thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for a great year this year. We are very excited about what's coming up in 2022. We pray for you guys. We pray that you have a blessed holiday season with your families and that 2022 is awesome for you all as well. On that note, we'll wrap it up. I'm Cameron Strang, and we will see you next year. We'll be here next Tuesday. Happy New Year's, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Relevant Podcast. Check out our features, interviews, and news updates every day at relevantmagazine.com. And make sure to follow Relevant on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest. For more great podcasts, browse the shows on the Relevant Podcast Network, which you can find at our site. And while you're there, don't miss the all-new era of Relevant Magazine. A new issue releases every other month at relevantmagazine.com.
Let's give another run at these toilet seats, guys. We got to diversify. This adventure is going to be a no for me, dog. I would put wheels on that thing and a steering wheel and just drive around town on David Hasselhoff. Who's your new partner, Batman? I don't know, he's got a blowgun. The parlor with the O is back on top. Does someone have an Old Testament? Oh, this is sick. It's everywhere. Hello? Hey, up. I don't know where this dog's been. My hand just exploded. And I had to blowtorch the Manson family. It'd be a wild time. Hurry, get the water balloons. Get them, go. Hey, kids, who wants an up-close look at the gallbladder? If you settle into the first 3 seasons, the last 9 are really good. You're wearing a blazer with flannel sweatpants. Come play with us. I'm considering moving to Pakistan, and here's why. No, I can't go to the Mulberry Street Cafe. You guys know me. I'm a buff superhero fan. Please, Michelle, I'm so sorry. Baby, come back. Please, what do you say, Quiet Storm? Dude, he replaced his mailbox with a bowling pin. What, is it going to be the Degenerate Alumni Fund? There's a nun uprising? I'm starting to question my entire wardrobe. You should see the wacky adventures we have in store. Whatever, just shut up for a second! We're going to be sending down McDonald's every meal. Jojo Joseph Jonas. I've never seen someone nearly overdose on Oreos. If I'm fist fighting a grizzly bear, I need to start practicing now. Oh, hello! I just sold some great invisible artwork. Roll a dice and invest in flying saucer tech. Let me guess, some seltzer and lime, gentlemen? They've been going homemade chemicals for a long time. If you're a guy who runs a float tank place, you've seen some stuff. Cut the grass for Dad. You can stay in barely space. Don't come back here. And the Blue Knight is Scott. And guess what? His car broke down, okay? This edition of The Great Commission is brought to you by Blue Apron. The Perfect Crime. Why are grandma's shoes on the table? Gloriously bedazzled pleather purple chaps. There's a giant rat running at me. You better not misreport this. You better not misreport this. I'm the coach and no one can tell me I can't. What could be next? The day he drank coffee. I got a body cam on. Did you guys see this? They found Bat Boy. He's in a cave. The doctors called it a reverse medical miracle. I'm slowly going colorblind in one eye. Bob's your uncle. Hey, Derek, those Gatorades don't distribute themselves. I like hibachi flavors, so lay off, lady. It's like Squid Game is taking place in my neighbor's driveway. I am in a psycho's funhouse of pain. Keep your hands inside the duck boat, everyone. He's been vaping. You go to your room. Nagadocious. See you, Mr. Bananas. Bye. There wasn't a scarecrow in that apple orchard earlier today, was there? And I still don't apologize, Busch Gardens. Hey, man, I'm not doing drugs. I call them grugs. Ooh, would you look at that oobleck? Wake up, sheeple. Hey, Jeff, where's the bathroom? When did we decide to just toss an orange into the equation? Further south you go, the more Mad Max it gets. This boat won't break 40 knots or everyone dies. And I'm like, well, we're in the middle of the ocean. He's in there scratching lottery tickets. It's not really a napkin. It's more of a squeegee situation. Ringo, make a beat for this one. Wake me up before you go. If this person isn't a child, they're likely a sociopath. Technology has ruined hypothetical heist. It's like a police siren up in the front row. Come on, bro. Yeah, I'm going to go all in 2022, but to give myself a break, I'm not brushing my teeth to the new year.
Relevant Podcast Network.